Hey folks, Jack McNiel here with the Church of Christ here in Kempner, Texas, and we're here to share a nugget of wisdom from the book of Proverbs. Today we're going to be looking at Proverbs chapter 21 and verse 2, where Solomon writes, "Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord pondereth the hearts." I am convinced that some people believe that they are the hero of their own story. They have come to believe, or they've deluded themselves into justifying their every single action. We live in a world that tells us that if it feels right, then it is right for you. That our feelings, they trump everything else. That feelings are more important than facts. That feelings are more important than truth. And so if it feels right in my heart, then it's okay for me to do. It may not be okay for you to do, but it's okay for me to do. That's the mentality that so many people have. And this makes right and wrong strictly subjective to the mood or the emotions of the man or the circumstances in which he finds himself. Some people, their ethics change based upon the circumstance. It may not be right for me to lie in every situation, but there might be one or two situations where they say it is okay for me to lie. Again, you see how subjective that is. So people tend to make themselves the hero of their own story. And so, we cannot depend upon human emotion or circumstance to tell us what is right and what is wrong. And so we have to depend upon our conscience that is properly trained. And, they say, oh, let your conscience be your guide. Well, that's not necessarily true. If your conscience is not trained according to the Word of God and along with the Word of God, your conscience is not a safe guide. But with a biblically trained conscience, our heart can safely guide us through life insomuch as we continuously examine ourselves on a regular basis. We look at the Scriptures, we look at our life, we compare our life with what the Scriptures teach. And if our life does not line up with scriptural teaching, then, the world says, well, the Scriptures are wrong. No, you're wrong, I'm wrong, and I need to change. And so, when man believes that his subjective emotions or feelings can safely guide him through life, he's sorely mistaken and he's in great spiritual jeopardy. Remember what happened during the period of the Judges. Here was this period of several hundred years where the Israelites had come into the promised land and they had conquered the promised land under Joshua, but they hadn't completed the conquest in so much as they hadn't completely driven out the enemies of God's people. They had not driven out God's, the pagans and those out of the country. And so they hadn't done all of those things. And as a result, over time, they began to be influenced by these pagan people, these pagan religions, and they turned away from God. And then God, when they would turn away, he would allow these pagan nations to subjugate them for a period of time. And then he would send a judge who would then, deliver Israel from the clutches of this enemy kingdom. And then for a while they would be faithful, usually as long as that judge lived. And then when he died, the whole cycle would start over. And so Judges 21 verse 25 just makes a great summary of the period of the judges. He says, "In those days there was no king in Israel, and every man did that which was right in his own eyes." We may attempt to justify our actions before man, and we may even delude ourselves into believing that we are in the right, but God knows our heart. On the day of judgment, he will weigh our heart and balance it against what he has revealed in his word. John chapter 12, verse 48 through 50, Jesus said there, "He that rejecteth me and receiveth not my words hath one that judgeth him. The word that I have spoken, the same shall judge him in the last day. For I have not spoken of myself, but the Father which sent me. He gave me a commandment, what I should say and what I should speak. And I know that his commandment is life everlasting. Whatsoever I speak, therefore, even as the Father said unto me, so I speak." And so Jesus there, he said that you're going to be judged by his words. We're not going to be judged by what we think or what we feel. We're going to be judged by what the Word of God says. And so if we're going to be judged by the Word of God, we need to judge ourselves, so to speak, by the Word of God. We need to compare ourselves and our lives and see how we stack up to the Word of God. Even as Paul said in 2 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 5, where he said, examine yourselves whether you be in the faith. Prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves how that Jesus Christ is in you, except ye be reprobates. He says, examine yourselves in the faith. Examine ourselves in light of the Word of God and see how our life stands up. And if it does not stand up, we need to make the changes in our lives and not try to change God's will to line up with what we think or what we believe or what we feel. Emotions are not a safe guide. Our conscience is not a safe guide unless it is guided by the Word of God. And the only way that we can really effectively train our conscience is by studying the Word of God. Study to show thyself approved to God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth, 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 15. And so, are you the hero of your own story? If that's the case, then maybe you need to examine your life in light of the Word of God. Hey, have a great day.